Hi, I'm Nupur and I help NRIs make critical decisions. I've been thinking about the changes I've experienced year after year after moving from the US to India. And I wanted to walk you through the changes I experienced during each year of me being in India. This is my seventh year, and it's been an interesting journey. So, my first year, I was still feeling that stress. And what that means for you is that if you are battling some kind of anxiety or OCD or whatever kind of stress that you're having while living abroad, and if you move to India, it's not like it's going to go away as soon as you step in or in a couple of weeks. It'll take time. So for me, that transition was about a year and a half, after which I completely was able to shed that stress and the anxiety. It kind of felt like raw wound that was open and was being rubbed against. So it took time for it to, what you could say, heal. In the first year, also, I had a lot of cultural misunderstandings. I made small but funny mistakes. For example, I went to a shop and I asked for milk, and he just pointed to a bin, and I was like, okay. I went there and I picked up a pouch, and normally milk comes in a pouch and it had curd written on it, and I was still in the US mode where you completely trust what they're saying. I was like, okay, maybe there's some kind of misunderstanding here, but this is milk. And obviously I went home and it was curd. Like, I really didn't expect curd to come in a pouch. So I still remember that incident because I was just laughing so much about my naivety. I also had other things, like there was a watchman who was being completely unreasonable in the apartment community that I was part of. I was sitting downstairs and I had come just from work and I had my backpack with me. So he thought I was from outside and he was being incredibly rude and mean and not understanding that I'm telling him I live in this apartment. And I shouted at him. I was like, Kya bhaiya, kya kar rahe ho? I still remember it today. And that taught me that I am never ever going to get angry at anyone in the labor class because I feel so bad, so bad, so bad. And these small mistakes that did, and I learned from it. And so that was year one of just still being raw from being so American after 13 years there, and then just starting to slowly understand what India is about. Also, year one, I was super patriotic in the United States. Used to cry while I listened to the national anthem. Those were still there. I was still very raw about it. And I really wanted to discover and learn more about India. And I was yearning to do that. So I got a chance to do that in year two, which is what I call a deeper understanding of what patriotism means. And then after my work with the government, I kind of felt that I started feeling that patriotism is reflected in everyday actions and doing things well. In fact, by just being in India, I can contribute to my country in a way that is patriotic. In my second year was about understanding not only about patriotism or my love for my country and how I can contribute, but again also learning more about how different cities have different feelings and expectations. For example, I was in New Delhi and I felt that Delhi was changing me into a person I didn't want to become. So it taught me that even location really mattered to me in India. And I moved to another city which was more in tune with who I am as a person. My second year was when I left my work to write my first book. This was the time when I was like a butterfly, just going from one idea to another. Like, should I do a startup, a business? Should I do photography full time? Should I do book writing full time? There was just so many things going on. And it didn't take me much time actually to eliminate a lot of options. For example, when I decided I want to do product photography or food photography in India and I started giving samples to people, I realized that the Indian market is very cost sensitive and the amount of effort that I put in for food photography may not reflect the value that people attach to it. So I quickly dropped it. I also realized that my impact to the world is far more than making a photograph. So India gave me an opportunity to try different things in a serious way and help eliminate it. Living abroad, you may not have that option because of your visa status. And even if you do, if you're in a country where you can do a side business, doing that business full time and committing to it is a very different thought process and experience than doing it as a side business. And India helped me experience that. And through that experience, I was able to learn. This second year was also when I started feeling a bit more relaxed and the stress and anxiety started going away. Year 3. This was more about exploring India. So I was doing surveys in villages in Madhya Pradesh and I explored different parts of rural India. It was fascinating. I really started understanding what India needs, and what we see on Twitter and online and newspaper and New York Times is so different from what it actually is on the ground. And I fell in love with Indians. It is, people are just so warm and friendly, and there were patterns we could see everywhere. Like every house we went to gave us water. That's the first thing they would give us, water. And that is such a common thing across all families in urban and rural India, which is to offer water to your guests. So this experience, now I worked for the government, I worked on the ground, and that in my third year in India, it solidified my understanding of myself, that yes, what patriotism means to me is to do a good job of whatever I'm really good at. And also, by being physically present in India, I am hiring services and contributing to the economy. And I think that in itself can be looked as being patriotic. So by this time, I had finished my first book, and now I felt like, you know what, time to get back into a proper job. But I also wanted to be close to my parents. So this was what I would say the start of a sort of healing journey, where I got to know myself more better while being an environment where, with a safety net, like food, logistics, sleeping, nothing, everything's taken care of. So this was my third year, was journey where my healing truly started. And what this means for you is that it'll take a lot of time for you to start finding that rhythm where you're actually getting into a place where you can be yourself and just discover yourself a little more. This was also the year where I started becoming less and less American. But I'll tell you when I started becoming more and more Indian. That comes a little later. Now, in my fourth year, I'm still with parents and I'm writing my second book. I finished that in 9 months. So it was brilliant. It was a great time to pursue an activity, do something serious that I really wanted to do for a long time, with the backing of my parents, which means all the logistics around me and also the mental support around me was present. So I was able to work in a job as well as do my writing and finish my second book. After my second book, I started realizing that I want to get a full-time job now. It's time to move out. But also, the fourth year mark is where I started missing the United States. And the idea of what if I move back was a thought that came across. And I'm being very vulnerable when I say it, because I do this for a living, which is I help NRIs figure out if they should move to India or not. Please note that I do not sell India to people. I don't tell them this is meant for you. And there's the same principle that I applied to myself. Just because I'm doing this doesn't mean that this is for me. It is a phase in my life. But anyway, I visited the United States. I've been visiting every year. It was so clear to me, I'm not contemplating moving back. I specifically remember the moment I was in a car with my friend in Santa Clara and I was suffocating. I was like, I can't take this. I've done enough of South Bay. With no offense to anyone from South Bay, but I was just over it. The fourth year mark and the feeling of, I've tasted everything here now. I'm ready for something new is a very common trait that ex-NRIs feel. So year fifth, it was different because of course COVID hit and I did get a new job. Now here was a couple of really interesting things. This year, I really miss shopping in the US. Oh my God, I was going crazy. I was like, I can't buy anything from India. I'm a huge shopping person. So what this means for you, maybe it could be something completely different that you're crazy about, maybe gadgets. You like the latest iPhone. For me, it was like, I cannot bear to shop in India and I missed it so much. I actually visited the US to, just to shop. Can't believe I'm admitting this on camera. But yes, okay, I admit it. I went to America just to shop. But it's my thing. It's not saying that it'll happen to you, but maybe there could be something that you miss, or maybe not at all. Maybe you won't miss anything. I do want to say this was a time when I realized how hard it is for me to work in India and how much more I had to learn. So I'm an author, right? I'm observant and I'm sensitive. And also, having been in Google United States for 10 years, I was sort of protected. Just like a lot of you who are viewing this, living abroad makes you focus on your work only. You don't have to really deal with people. In India, I dealing with people is the challenge. Work is this much, and dealing with people is this much. And I started to see that I'm not very good at it. I have not learned the nuances, and I challenged my basic thought process on dealing with people. And I learned a lot. Say, for example, what I used to do was I was incredibly friendly with everybody. And India taught me to be a little bit discriminatory in terms of the people that I talk to. I want to make sure that I use the word discrimination in a positive way, because it is more about prudence and not discrimination in a negative way. So, for example, instead of opening up to everyone, I had to ensure that when I'm talking to someone incredibly junior to me, say somebody who's 15 years junior, who's just passed out of college, you can be friendly with them, but you don't have to make sure about boundaries, because a lot of people don't know their boundaries. They haven't learned it yet. And level of maturity of, say, American kids who get out of college in America is very different from Indian kids. Of course, it's changing now, but I slowly learned that I need to be careful in just being blatantly friendly with everybody. Just make sure you take some time before you open up with everyone. This was year 5 where I also started. So this is where I started feeling that I have to survive the workforce here, but I learned a lot. It was now year 5 when I started adapting to work culture. And it also meant that it really exponentially helped my growth as a human. And this is what I'm so thankful to India for, because it gives you what you need to be a better person. Instead of, it's kind of like a medicine. Year 5 and 6, I'll make it a combination because it was still during those COVID times. By this time, from year 1 to 5, my health has been very different from what it was in the US. So in the US, I was always super active. I was able to run marathons. I was fit. I used to work out 9 days a week. And in India, that just totally dropped. I've spoken before in my talks about how my health and fitness has been impacted, not necessarily health. So this was the year when I had already tried everything I possibly could to become intermittently. I tried running, I tried going to the gym, and nothing really worked. But what happened was in year 5 and 6 is that I really started opening up about spending money, because now in India, you're able to save in a very different way. I don't want to compare it to the US way of saving, but it was in a way where I felt like, yes, now I have the resources and the money to spend on hiring resources that can help me in a more professional way. So I was able to hire a dietitian, fitness instructor. I was able to push myself into different way of losing weight. That was something I hadn't been able to discover in the US. And I also gave me a chance to hire a mentor, or a what we call a life coach, who has tremendously been able to help me. And it's kind of weird, because I'm sitting in India now, I'm hiring services from America, which is expensive, but I think that's the beauty of being able to feel rich in India. Whether you are rich or not, you just feel rich, which means you can spend on things that you really need. Year 7, here is where I say I settled in fully, became completely Indian in my ways. And I can give you an example. I always used to shout at my mom, because when I was visiting India from the US, she used to walk on the road and not the footpath. And I was very righteous about it. I've written about this as well on my blog, that no, we should walk on the footpath. That's made for walking. And by my 7th year, if you watch me now, I walk on the road. So that's one way of being fully Indian. I have been fully able to embrace people who come late. This is a thing for me, and for what it means for you is maybe something that really irks you about India or Indian traits that could change. So, for example, for me, being on time is like the thing. And when people are late, some fuse used to blow in my head, although I wouldn't verbalize it, but I would get really irritated. And this year, things changed, because I realized that it's not personal to me. And it is my responsibility to manage my time in a way that I am able to accommodate for their pluses, minuses. I realize it's my responsibility to manage my time so that I can accommodate their change in schedule, or also learned how to judge if somebody is sincere about time or not. This was also the year where I fired, which is I decided to leave my job, and lo and behold, I lasted 2 days, which is the plan was to leave my job, write my third book. And I realized there's no way I can do this. So I decided to change my career, which again, I'm thankful to India for giving me this opportunity and the ease of this flexibility of just changing careers like that without worrying about visa or anything else. I do want to mention that finding a better home, it was my 7th year when I found a house that I genuinely like. The housing situation, and I've spoken about this again, is very, very non-standard in India. And finding a home that you really like is incredibly difficult. You will see the challenge if you move here. The good apartments go in 5 minutes. It's kind of like San Fran or New York or other major cities where good apartments just go like that, or you need to know someone who has a good apartment, or basically plain luck. So again, what does this mean for you? The timeline for getting a good home, feeling settled, taking care of your mental health, taking care of your physical health, all that is going to be mash and unpredictable. So for me, I know these milestones were a year and a half, then 3 years, then 6 years, 7 years for home. For me, the milestone was a year and a half to feel mentally better, 3 years to feel settled in, 5 years to adjust to work culture, 7 years to change a job and find a great home. So, what could that mean for you? It could mean anything, but the only thing that you can take away from this is that you cannot expect to jump into India and have everything perfectly carved out. Let the universe give you what you need at the right time, and keep it open. Keep it open. You never know what comes into your life. So if I talk about the challenges that I face today, I would, there's a long list. You can just keep talking about, oh, this is bad, that is bad, this is irritating, that is irritating. But I think what lens you have to come in with is patience and trust. Patience that things will work out eventually. And second is, trust the Indian culture. There is a reason why people behave in a certain way. And I'm not saying that people who throw wrappers on the street and dirty the street are right, but there is a reason why certain people reserved when they meet you. And you need to give themselves the space to take their time to get to know you, and you take your time to get to know people in India and why they behave in a certain way, instead of coming with your fixed ideas of how things should be and the righteousness that a lot of NRIs come with. That needs to go through the shredder. Great. So I hope this recap helped you. So you as an NRI, maybe you'll ask someone in India, how is it in India? And they say it's great or it's terrible. Just remember that being in India is kind of like the weather. If you ask someone, how is it? How is the weather? Well, maybe today it is raining, tomorrow it's sunshine. So India is like that. There are challenges today, there is fun tomorrow, there is another challenge tomorrow. So you can't really say that it's good or bad. But one thing I can promise you is that India will help you grow and develop as a person. And that is what I really love. Again, being very vulnerable in saying this, I think when I was in the bubble that I lived in the California bubble that I lived in, I was still a girl. I was able to grow professionally very well, but dealing with people was not my strong point. After coming to India, I think that really made me grow up. It really made me look inside and understand, why am I saying these things? My personal opinion was to never discriminate between people and talk to everyone equally. But no, you have to be a bit prudent, and that is called being an adult. It's not about, like, of course we're all not saints, right? Like, we're saying everybody's equal. I hope this helps. I'm Nupur, and I help NRIs make critical decisions. Bye.